high school team this week. He'll go in and next week start playing baseball, play 40 baseball games in 50 days leading up to football. And outside of when we have a day or two of camp here or there with OTAs with our team, he won't touch a football. And, I mean, that's the way I like it. I mean, I don't see a reason to, and most of the guys you see that make it to the NFL, Major League Baseball or whatever, didn't specialize. I mean, when I was younger, we played every sport we could, whatever season it was in.
Yeah. I think we could have a whole show on specialization and how that's a negative thing towards parents, athletes, injuries, all the above. And I love multi-sport athletes too. I was one in high school and in college, and I think it's critical to, like, going back to your piece about being well-rounded. I can't remember the exact percentage of high school athlete or a high school football player making the pros. I believe it's less than 1%. I could be wrong. And to make it to college, it's just a little bit above that. And so, absolutely, multi-sport athletes are important, whatever school it is, small or big. Nate, how does your school, or how do you and the basketball coach and baseball coach and whatever other sport your players may be a part of, how do you guys manage that?
You know, in the right setting, it's great, and it works out perfectly. And sometimes I've just kind of seen it both ways. Sometimes in a setting where it's kind of everybody's worried about their own thing, it can be a little bit of a nightmare. But fortunately, we've got a good thing where I'm at now, and I say it, we've had it both ways. But in a small school especially, it's just there's so many benefits to being a multi-sport athlete. I'm glad you guys hit on the injuries and the burnout. You see it all the time. You do. Specifically for football, we're guaranteed 10 games in a season, and you don't go necessarily and play travel football in the summer or in the spring. I think it helps our sport that it's not like that. I think that the fact that you have 10 football games in a year, those each mean something. And sometimes it's on to the next game, it's on to the next thing. And maybe it takes away a little bit if you're doing, if you're playing a Major League Baseball schedule in, I don't know, third grade, maybe it's not that big of a deal anymore. I like the component that you're out competing. Maybe it's not your number one thing, but you're out competing with some other guys. You're with some other people. You're around another coach. I think there's a lot of benefits to that. To encourage that, I've got kids in the weight program, and we actually do that during school. It's one of our class periods. It's not all football players. In our weight program, it's not a football program. It's a general kind of all athletic, kind of a whole body thing. And we don't make it real specific to football because we've got our kids are always doing something. And you want to encourage that. And part of the way, one way I encourage that is I'm the head track coach as well. And, that gets me, and it's the same with the kids. I'm around a bunch of different kids that I normally wouldn't see in a school day or a school year. For instance, our distance kids, the kids that run cross country. We've got some great kids there. And if I wasn't involved in track, I wouldn't see those guys. And it's kind of neat to see how those relationships, with the kids kind of change. And, am I going to pay attention to the cross-country team a lot more this year? You're absolutely right, I am. We'll pause practice and jog over to the edge of the field when those guys run by and cheer them on because those are our guys. We're all part of one big kind of family there, and that's I think that's a really kind of neat thing. We've got on my staff in particular for football, the baseball coach is the varsity baseball coach is one of my junior high coaches. So what a great feeder system for him to have access to those middle school kids and kind of see, how they do things and kind of get those guys, primed up for eventually to become a baseball player. And then we've got track covered, and we've got we've had basketball covered before. There's just a lot of different things there, a lot of different interaction with the kids, and the more guys that are working out together, the better.
I think the most important part of that piece with having multi-sport athletes is something you kind of alluded to about having the right staff for each sport that are all on board for that. Whether it's a necessity because you're a small school or a big school, regardless, I think all coaches should be promoting any type of athletics to make that well-rounded, going back to what Mike said, more well-rounded person because of the specialization part of getting those injuries and burnout and doing those things for several years, going back to your youth days, could be, detrimental to your body. And I think that's a great point that you guys said. Guys, it felt like about 5 minutes ago we were just starting the show, and the things that we talked about were pretty crucial, and I'm not sure how better we could have gotten with those things. And kind of wrapping up our coaching series here, Mike, is there something that you would say to a young aspiring coach? To what advice would you give them?
Advice I would give, sorry my internet dropped too, so I had to call back on my cell phone. But
that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, so the advice I would give is this. Make sure you're in it for the right reason. Make sure you're not in it just for yourself to glorify yourself. You're supposed to be in it to take care of the kids, to help the kids. And, in the end, that's all it comes down to. It's just like being a school teacher. You're in it to help kids develop, to help them get better, and for them to have an enjoyable time so when they look back on it, they would say, I would want to play for that guy again.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the ultimate compliment, is having those players come back and say, hey, Coach, remember that time? Or, hey, I really appreciate, you doing that for me. Or, whatever it is, they'll remember those things. You may not, because you're surrounded by so many kids and throughout the program and for how many years. And hearing that I think that's the best thing that can happen as a coach. Nate, what would you say to a young aspiring coach that's listening right now?
Well, the fact that you just said, keeping the main thing, being all about the kids, that's exactly right. And if you want to get, like technical as far as, maybe being a good coach or doing what your head coach needs you to do, being early. Being early, be willing to do those things that nobody wants to do. Be willing to get the equipment set up for the bus ride. Be willing to, pick up the trash on the school bus. Be willing to take care of the locker room, do the grade check. Be willing to do those little jobs that sometimes, are monotonous or don't have anything to do with actually coaching your sport. But be willing to try those things. Be willing to take care of that kind of stuff. Figuring out what those things are, too. Just finding that awareness of what needs to be done and when, and taking some of that off your head coach. That's a great way to get more responsibility. If you're wanting to move up in kind of the food chain there, being able to do those extra things. Building that relationship with the guys, trying maybe coaching a position, maybe learning something that you're not familiar with. Maybe, my first gig, I was a running back coach. Had to do some homework, had to get with some guys, had to get some drills, had to kind of find my way on that. Being an offensive line guy, defensive line guy, had to kind of figure it out. And that's one of the best things I ever did. Just coaching some different positions, being around some different guys. That was big. Be willing to do whatever it takes to be on that staff or to be a valuable member of that staff.
The thing that I would say, and it's only one thing, and it kind of evolves around all the things that we talked about as far as being a coach, is getting out of your comfort zone and, doing those extra things. But mainly, whether it's public speaking, whether it's coaching position you never coached before, whether it's taking a task that isn't just coaching, something on the back burner in that program to take upon yourself and be the leader of that certain item. And being out of comfort zone is pretty critical in professionally developing yourself. And then I couldn't do it any other way as far as doing that, as far as, getting out of your comfort zone. So those young coaches out there, those aspiring coaches, take all this advice that you've learned in the last 4 weeks and run with it and utilize it and, use it to the best of your ability. Mike and Nate, thanks for coming on. I appreciate all the things that you mentioned, and I wrote some notes that kind of reiterate, because sometimes as coaches we kind of fall off the track once in a while and we kind of forget a couple of those things. At least in my case, I'll speak for myself. But those are all great points you guys had today. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, guys.
All right, thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate it.
Just a reminder out there to check out our website, gruelingtruth.net. You can find us on these following media outlets such as Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Play Music, and the most popular iTunes with the search phrase Grueling Truth to listen to all the shows anytime you like. For my guests, Nate, and my good pastor, this is your host, Josh Benjamin, for The Real Deal. Thanks for listening to The Real Deal and The Grueling Truth. Until next time, be real with what you say.